Hello, I am here to talk to you about my novel, Can You Be? I don't have a physical copy of the book because I am traveling at the moment, but I did want to talk to you about it a little bit. So, Can You Be? There you see it, it's the Kindle version. It's my second novel, literary fiction, contemporary fiction. And it is a story about a woman, Nena, who receives a box mysteriously. She doesn't know who has sent her the box and why. And when she opens the contents, those contents help kind of spiral change in her life. She's used to living a very quiet life, a very quiet existence in Charleston, South Carolina. And part of what happens with the contents of the box and the people that actually come into her life because of them help her go into a journey of self-discovery, self-development. She also goes on a journey to Stockholm, the Baltics, and Finland. What's interesting about the story and what makes the story unique is Nena herself as a character, because she is such a quiet and reserved person, and she struggles. She struggles with connection. She struggles with figuring out who she is, thus the title, Can You Be? And she is very reserved, very quirky, odd at times even, and so it's just it's a beautiful story of unfolding essentially and how she makes her way in the world. She has had a childhood where she's been raised in boarding schools away from her father. Her mother has passed away, and so all of those elements also feature into the story. It's a story about, questioning what is family, what are friendships, grief, all of those things. And there's a lot of mystical elements that come in the story. One of the main features is a crystal that she receives, an angelite, and thus the cover has that blue stone on there. And angelite as a crystal is a beautiful crystal to connect you to the angelic world, to the divine. That's why it's called an angelite. And she does discover other crystals along the way. So the thing is, for me in particular, the mystical is very important as an element in my writing, in my poetry even. I've got 3 books of poetry, and as I said, this is my second novel. The first one, Lonely Dove, also had elements of spirituality, mysticism, and I do that on purpose because I myself, I'm very connected to the spiritual and the mystical. I am a doctor of divinity, and that essentially means that I've got a doctorate in metaphysical sciences, so I've studied this quite a bit, and I like to incorporate it into the storytelling. It's not religious in any way. What I say is that I write in a grounded spiritual way so that it is not too out there, and it is easy to kind of comprehend and assimilate into the story and into everyday life, which is how I view my own spirituality. And there's also this mysterious holy man that comes in. And I've always, especially the novels that I've written and the stories that I do write, even short stories, incorporate some sort of spiritual teacher or spiritual guide in order for people to realize that we're not alone. Not only are we just not alone in terms of connected to the universe, but also we all need help and support in some way. We're not on this journey on our own. We're meant to reach out to others, rely on others, give our service and support to other people. And so that is an integral element into the storytelling. When I came up with the story, which is actually quite different to how I have come up with either Lonely Dove or the other manuscripts that I've got as work in progress, I started it as a short story. And the first time that I read it, that I wrote it, was perhaps around 2021. And I wrote that story because I intended it just to be a short story. And Nena was always a character, and she always received that mysterious box. And so at that time, the story was called The Box. And I showed the story to a good friend. I also showed it to an editor because I intended for it to be published in a literary journal. And both of them said, wow, you really do have it, the kind of grounds to make this into a novel. Have you considered expanding it? In the end, I did not publish the short story. I sat with the story for a while, and then last summer, I went to the Baltics on a tour, which is in essence included in this book, in Can You Be? And while I was in the tour, it occurred to me that this would be a very good addition to the story. So I came back from that tour, and a couple of months later, it was NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And so that was November 2022. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take the short story and write it out as a novel, and I did. I took that time to flesh out. The story was just a couple thousand words, and then eventually, by the end of the month, I think I had close to 60,000 words. During NaNoWriMo, the intention is to end up with 50,000. I did a little bit more than that, but what's wonderful about NaNoWriMo is that you're part of this community who essentially commits to writing a certain amount of words every day, and keeps you kind of in line to make sure that you do that. I didn't have a fully complete story then. I still needed to flesh a lot of it out. And so I did a lot of rewriting and editing. I showed it to an editor. Anyway, that's essentially how that story got fleshed out. And it was very different from my other writing in that usually with my other pieces of writing or the other stories that I have, I start a story and I don't quite know where it's going to go. I sort of just go with the flow, but because this one had started as a short story and it was a complete short story, I had more of the kind of outline of where I wanted it to go. Of course, a lot of the in-betweens didn't come together until I actually started putting it together. But that was quite a unique thing in how not just how the story was written, but how quickly it was written. I mean, if you think about it, it took me more or less 2 to 3 years to put it together, but at the same time, it just sat as a short story until this last November, and it was during November that I fleshed it out, and the story came out, was published August 22nd, so yeah, it was a quick turnaround in that sense. Because Lonely Dove, which was my first novel, took me about 5 years from start to finish. So this was a shorter journey than that one. And it was a very interesting story to tell because Nena is actually quite different from me. I mean, I do draw from my own life experiences, like I drew from the trip that I took to the Baltics. But Nena as a character is very different from me. And so I had to put her view of life, her interpretation into the journey, into the storytelling, into her view of the world. And that was such a fun experience, getting to know Nena, getting myself in her shoes, getting to experience life through her eyes as opposed to my own. And so, you know, that's one of the wonders and beauties of writing, but that is something that I really, really enjoyed with Can You Be, is putting together Nena's story. What else can I tell you about the book? I think it's in a way a late coming of age story because Nena is about to turn 30, and that birthday for her means quite a lot, and it brings about a lot of introspection that she has been carrying with her for quite a long time and just hadn't been able to resolve, or hadn't given herself the opportunity to resolve. And so it's just a journey of beautiful unfolding for her and for the other characters that are in the book. So I do hope that you take a chance to read it. And if you do, I do very much look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments. Because I do love to hear readers' reactions. And one of the things that I enjoy the most is that regardless of how it is that I've written, the interpretation is always in the reader's hands. And so I love to hear how people respond and react to the story and what they take away from it. So do reach out and let me know what you think of Can You Be?